Всім добрий вечір.
On behalf of the brave, on behalf of every father and every mother who waits for freedom, on behalf of our warriors, and paves the way for a new history.
Hello and welcome to Tochnyi Weekly, the show that gets behind the headlines to discuss the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We have an excellent show for you today. We have a couple of important guests and we're very excited about it. So please, if you could, hit the like button and also subscribe to Tochnyi. Please do hit that like button. It's going to help spread the word about the stream and hopefully get more people to hear all the great stuff that's going to happen. So please also check us out on Twitter and BlueSky. We also have a website, Tochnyi.info. We have a lot of maps there. We have a lot of research there. So if you want more technical information about some of the stuff we talk about on the stream, it's definitely the place to check out. Now, Erlend, normally I would stop there, but we did a thing. And I wanted to ask you, is the thing out? Can we talk about the thing or should I be quiet now?
The podcast.
Yeah.
So it's out on Spotify. We had a first kind of a topic conversation in a more academic framework, I would say, because we were so lucky that we got a couple of scholars that are doing research on both the war in Ukraine and also unmanned systems as associates to Tochnyi. And we had that last Saturday in our own Discord server, and our video editor has done some amazing job editing that down into a podcast because it was really, really good. And it's out on Spotify and it's coming out on YouTube tomorrow.
Cool. Yeah. So tune in for that on YouTube or check it out on Spotify. We're really excited about it. It was a really interesting talk. I highly recommend people check it out. So that's a good reason to subscribe. You'll get updates like that for extra stuff that we do. And we're going to hope to have many more discussions like that in the future. We think it was a very good discussion. So we have a great show for you today. First, I will be doing my news report as always. That'll be followed by the German aid to Ukraine report from my colleague. That will then be followed by a discussion with our guest Artem, who is an associate at Tochnyi, who has done some incredible research on intercepting drones with other drones, is I think the best way to put it, drone interception. So he'll be discussing that topic. And we'll also be joined by our guest, Jonathan from ATP Geopolitics, the YouTube channel. So we're really excited about that. We've had Jonathan on a few times. He's always a great guest, and he always asks really interesting questions. So he read the article that Artem wrote, and we're excited to talk about Artem's article. And we thought Jonathan would be a good guest to have here to also discuss it with Artem. And so, yeah, we'll try to talk to Jonathan about some other things going on, maybe if we have time. So, yeah, if you guys have any questions in chat during the stream, or if you want to put some chats in the comments, some questions in the comments after you watch, later on, please feel free. We do take your feedback, into account. We do our best to answer questions. So, yeah, feel free to, give us feedback or questions. And I think without any further delay, because we got so much going on, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into the news. These are the main headlines as of March 30th, 2025. First up, we have operational news. Operations at the Kavkazskaya oil transshipment facility in Russia's Krasnodar region have been indefinitely halted following a recent drone strike attributed to Ukrainian forces. The impact of the incident was severe enough that, according to the Russian media outlet RBC, restarting the site anytime soon is considered unfeasible. The Caspian Pipeline Consortium, which manages the site, has begun efforts to repair the damage, but the scale of the disruption has created long-term complications. The incident began on the night of March 19th when a drone strike triggered an explosion at the facility. The blast led to oil tanks, which caused them to lose structural integrity and sparked a significant fire. Local sources reported that just 2 days later, on March 21st, the site may have been targeted again. According to eyewitness accounts, a group of 3 drones struck additional tanks, possibly leading to injuries among emergency responders, some of whom were reportedly transported to hospitals.
The Kavkazskaya facility is a vital component of Russia's oil logistics, and it handles the transition of oil from railway delivery systems to the Caspian Pipeline Consortium infrastructure, allowing for continued transport to Novorossiysk, a major export hub for Russia. The transshipment point can manage up to 6 million tons of oil annually and includes a rail terminal connected by a 15.7-kilometer pipeline to the Kropotynskaya pumping station. Ukrzaliznytsia, the Ukrainian railway service, experienced a major digital breach that targeted its online infrastructure, announced by the company on March 24th. The incident was described as both extensive and strategically executed, which caused significant disruption to the organization's digital platforms, including its website and mobile application, which went offline on March 23rd due to what was initially described as a technical malfunction. Restoration efforts are ongoing, with technical teams actively working to bring services back online. Despite the severity of the cyber attack, the company reported that railway operations themselves were not interrupted. Trains continued to run on schedule owing to the pre-established contingency procedures developed in response to previous digital attacks. Ukrainian Railways emphasized that the attack was highly organized and involved multiple layers of intrusion, which were attributed to hostile external actors. In response, cybersecurity experts within the company are coordinating with the security services of Ukraine to recover systems using backup data. While the digital infrastructure is being repaired, online ticketing remains unavailable. Ukrzaliznytsia has shifted to offline ticketing and service operations for the time being. The eVoro chatbot continues to be a valuable tool in Ukraine's defense efforts, receiving hundreds of weekly submissions from citizens despite a decrease in engagement compared to the early months of the full-scale invasion. According to Mikhailo Fedorov, Ukraine's deputy prime minister and the minister of digital transformation, the steady flow of reports show that the platform remains consistently useful even as attempts to disrupt it by opposing forces continue. In an interview with My Ukraine TV, Fedorov emphasized the long-term impact of the tool, noting that over the course of the 3-year invasion, more than 660,000 messages had been submitted by residents, particularly from areas under temporary occupation. These reports have included valuable details about the positioning and movement of opposing troops, defense installations, and military hardware, contributing directly to Ukraine's strategic awareness. Fedorov highlighted the unique structure of the chatbot, which distinguishes it from other platforms by integrating it with the DIA application. This ensures that reports come from verified users, which lends greater confidence in the accuracy and reliability of intelligence. Although the data is anonymized, the identity verification step helps reduce misinformation and confirms that the contributions are coming from Ukrainian citizens rather than hostile actors attempting to spread disinformation. He affirmed that the continued use of the systems demonstrates its effectiveness and its role in supporting military operations. The SBU recently also announced the launch of another Telegram chatbot, which is intended to identify individuals involved in recruiting Ukrainians for destructive acts such as arson. Ukraine's Minister of Defense, Rustem Umerov, has announced a major organizational shift aimed at strengthening the country's military aviation capabilities. A new dedicated aviation command structure is being formed within both the Ministry of Defense and the General Staff, intended to focus solely on expanding and modernizing Ukraine's air power. The effort is geared toward improving existing aerial platforms while also integrating advanced technologies, with the ultimate goal of achieving greater control over the skies. Umerov stated that Ukraine is already operating powerful aircraft such as the American F-16 and French Mirage jets, which marks a significant step in the country's aerial defense development. He emphasized that this progress represents only the beginning of a larger aerial initiative. As part of this strategy, several key leadership appointments were made with the endorsement of the President of Ukraine. Major General Alexei Marchenko was named Deputy Chief of the General Staff. Brigadier General Serhiy Holubtsov was appointed the Deputy Commander of the Air Force, and Colonel Alexander Yakiv was designated as the Commander of Aviation, Deputy Commander of the Air Force. Umerov also announced plans to recommend Alexander Kosenko for the role of Deputy Minister of Defense for Aviation. Kosenko previously served as advisor to the minister, focusing on the integration of Western aircraft into Ukraine's air fleet. His upcoming responsibilities will involve scaling these efforts across the entire military aviation infrastructure, including Ukraine's air defense and offensive operations. The individuals selected for these new leadership roles bring extensive experience and deep institutional knowledge. Major General Marchenko has served in a range of aviation roles for over 3 decades, including leadership positions in reconnaissance, fighter units, and training centers. Brigadier General Holubtsov is also a veteran of fighter aviation, having held numerous command roles and contributed significantly to personnel training and aviation development within the Ukrainian Air Force. Colonel Diakiv, with nearly 30 years of service, has risen through the ranks to command tactical aviation units and has led programs for retraining and developing aviation personnel. South Korea's military has reported a further escalation in North Korea's support for Russia's war in Ukraine, stating that an estimated 3,000 additional North Korean personnel were sent to Russian territory in the early months of this year. This brings the total number of North Korean troops reportedly involved to approximately 14,000 since their involvement began. The reinforcement is believed to have taken place between January and February. According to South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff, a substantial portion of the initial North Korean deployment of 4,000 individuals became casualties during the ongoing war. Alongside personnel, North Korea has reportedly provided a steady stream of military equipment to Russia, including large quantities of short-range ballistic missiles, self-propelled artillery, and multiple rocket systems. Up next, we have economy and aid. France has revealed a new €2 billion military assistance initiative for Ukraine, with a focus on meeting the country's most pressing defense needs amid the ongoing invasion. The announcement was made by French President Emmanuel Macron, detailing a diverse range of support, including missile systems and armored vehicles intended to reinforce Ukraine's military capabilities on multiple fronts. Among the equipment being provided are Milan anti-armor missiles and Mica air-to-air missiles, which are designed for use with Mirage 2000 fighter jets. The Mica missile, known for its versatility, is capable of engaging aerial threats at both short and medium distances. It is designed to counter agile aircraft, including both crewed and uncrewed systems, offering Ukraine enhanced air defense and aerial engagement capability. The aid package also includes Mistral missiles, which provide additional protection against airborne threats, along with armored vehicles such as the VAB and AMX-10RC models. These vehicles are expected to bolster mobility and survivability for Ukrainian forces on the ground. In addition to weapons and vehicles, the support package also features various types of ammunition, including precision-guided systems. France also emphasized its commitment to long-term cooperation, noting that part of the initiative involves manufacturing military equipment directly in Ukraine through collaborative efforts with French defense firms. Denmark has introduced a financial support measure aimed at encouraging its domestic companies to invest in Ukraine's defense industry, offering guarantees worth €130 million. This initiative was announced by Ukraine's first Deputy Prime Minister and Economy Minister, Yulia Sverdenko, on March 25th. The backing will be provided through the Export and Investment Fund of Denmark, a government financial instrument designed to support international investment by Danish firms. The program allows for state-backed guarantees covering up to 70% of a Danish company's investment in Ukraine's defense sector, with the total covered investment reaching as much as 1 billion Danish kroner. This move is part of a broader Danish strategy to strengthen Ukraine's military production by encouraging direct cooperation between Danish manufacturers and Ukrainian defense companies. According to Sverdenko, the new financial instrument is intended to reduce risks typically associated with investing in a conflict zone, thereby making it more attractive for Danish firms to enter the Ukrainian market. The initiative is also expected to facilitate access to Ukraine's defense expertise and innovation, including technology that has been refined through use in real battlefield conditions. The EIFO is already familiar to Danish businesses, having been an active player in supporting cross-border ventures, and is now being positioned to expand its role in Ukraine's defense sector. Norway has committed to providing 3 billion Norwegian kroner, or approximately $285 million in humanitarian aid to Ukraine and to Ukrainian refugees residing in Moldova throughout 2025. The announcement was made by the Norwegian government on March 27th. Norwegian Foreign Minister Espen Barth Eide, why does he have three names, Erlend, emphasized that strikes on civilian infrastructure, including homes, schools, hospitals, and power facilities, have continued at an intense pace, leading to a growing number of displaced Ukrainians. In response to a broader decline in international humanitarian funding for Ukraine, Norway is positioning itself as a consistent donor focused on protecting civilians and supporting life-saving efforts. Norway's humanitarian aid will be allocated to a range of international and national organizations, including the United Nations response programs in both Ukraine and Moldova, the International Committee of the Red Cross, the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent, and other humanitarian groups. In a recent visit from March 26 to March 27th, the Foreign Minister and Minister of Labor and Social Inclusion traveled to Kyiv and Kharkiv. During the visit, Norway donated a hybrid solar power plant to the Kharkiv Municipal Clinical Hospital. The initiative aims to provide consistent energy for critical hospital functions. Romania has confirmed its continued commitment to providing military assistance to Ukraine. Don't tell anybody though. Following a meeting of the Supreme Council for the National Defense, or CSAT, which was held on Friday. The announcement comes from a press release issued by the Romanian Presidential Administration and was reported by Romania Journal. It marked the first session of the CSAT since Ilie Bolojan assumed the role of acting president in February. The Council reviewed the ongoing situation in Ukraine, focusing on the impact of Russia's continued aggression and analyzing both the conditions on the ground and the potential direction of diplomatic efforts. Romanian officials acknowledged the recent ceasefire discussions and expressed support for U.S.-led initiatives, but view these only as a preliminary move to a potential agreement. Romania underscored its unique position as Ukraine's neighbor with the longest shared land and maritime border, emphasizing a vested interest in seeing an end to the war. Romanian leadership reiterated its desire for Ukraine to achieve stability and pursue its aspirations toward European integration in line with broader EU objectives. Ukraine has officially begun producing small arms ammunition under a licensing agreement with the Czech Republic, according to Ukraine's Minister for Strategic Industries, Herman Smetanin. This development marks a significant milestone in bilateral defense cooperation and follows a series of formal agreements and collaborative efforts that have been unfolding since 2023. The announcement was made during a meeting that included Czech President Petr Pavel and Ukrainian Presidential Advisor Oleksandr Kamyshin, during which several agreements were signed to support localized weapons production. The primary focus of the new agreements is the supply of components necessary for Ukraine to manufacture its own small arms ammunition and to begin assembly of Bren 2 assault rifles domestically. The move is expected to strengthen Ukraine's defense manufacturing base by reducing dependency on foreign supplies during the war. Collaboration in this area was first made public in April of 2023 when President Pavel noted that the Czech defense sector had outlined 6 major joint initiatives with Ukraine. These included not only ammunition and small arms production, but also the repair of T-64 and T-72 tanks and the co-production of FA-259 aircraft through a Czech firm. Cellier and Belot, a renowned Czech ammunition manufacturer, were identified early on as a key player in this partnership. Ukraine's defense industry has unveiled a new mobile air defense platform that repurposes the HMMWV vehicle chassis, equipping it with R-73 air-to-air guided missiles in a ground launch configuration. The system has been deployed to frontline units, specifically the 3rd Separate Assault Brigade, which shared images highlighting the extensive modifications made to the original vehicle. While the base frame remains, the design now features a custom-built cabin and newly installed missile launcher. The modernized system also incorporates electronic warfare modules mounted on the vehicle's roof, intended to disrupt and defend against FPV drones. The decision to integrate the R-73 missile is notable for its use of a heat-seeking guidance system and its ability to operate on a fire and relocate basis. Once launched, the missile autonomously tracks its target without the need for continuous operator guidance, enabling the vehicle to move immediately after firing and reducing its exposure to counterattack. The R-73 missile offers a forward engagement range of up to 20 kilometers with the RMD-1 version and up to 40 kilometers with the RMD-2. This mobile system is one of several mobile air defense platforms currently in use by Ukraine. It complements a U.S.-supplied AN/TWQ-1 Avenger system, which also uses the HMMWV as a base, but is equipped with an FIM-92 Stinger missile and a 12.7mm Browning M2 machine gun. Avengers have played a role in defending urban areas, including repelling drone attacks on Kyiv. Ukrainian defense manufacturers have successfully established domestic production of spare parts for the American-made M113 armored personnel carrier, significantly improving the maintenance and operational readiness of these vehicles on the front lines. The development was announced by the Logistics Forces Command of Ukraine's armed forces, highlighting the growing self-sufficiency of Ukraine's military support infrastructure. Thanks to a steady supply of locally produced components, logistics teams have been able to speed up repair processes and expand the scale of restoration work. This has resulted in shorter wait times for essential parts, ensuring a higher number of M113s remain in active service and ready for deployment. Repair operations are no longer limited to specialized factories. Military logistics bases are also performing extensive overhauls themselves. After completing repairs, vehicles undergo trial runs to detect any remaining mechanical issues before being returned to the field. This proactive approach minimizes the risk of technical failure during combat operations and avoids the challenges associated with recovering damaged vehicles from active conflict zones. One of the soldiers involved in testing the repaired M113s, identified as Serhiy, emphasized the vehicle's practicality. He praised its straightforward handling and ease of maintenance, noting such features as its automatic transmission and relatively high speed of 56 km per hour, which supports rapid troop deployment and swift casualty evacuation. He also pointed out the vehicle's efficient fuel use, remarking that it can operate for an entire day on just 30 liters, which enhances its battlefield endurance. The International Monetary Fund has approved an additional $400 million disbursement to Ukraine as part of the country's ongoing financial assistance under the Extended Fund Facility. This decision was confirmed by the IMF's press service following the successful completion of the 7th review of Ukraine's program. The new funding brings in the total amount dispersed to Ukraine under the IMF-supported program to approximately $10 billion. The funds are earmarked to support Ukraine's state budget, helping to maintain economic functions amid the ongoing war and its fiscal pressures. The IMF emphasized that Ukraine has demonstrated a strong performance under the program, despite operating in extremely difficult circumstances. According to the IMF, the country's economy has shown notable resilience, which has allowed the government to meet the program's requirements consistently. On March 26, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development approved a €270 million loan to Ukraine's state energy company Naftogaz. The funds are intended to help the company purchase natural gas for use during the next 2 winter seasons, ensuring stable energy supplies amid the ongoing war and infrastructure disruptions. In addition to this loan, Norway is also contributing €140 million in grant funding through the EBRD, which further reinforces Ukraine's ability to secure energy resources. The Ukrainian Prime Minister emphasized that this funding will help the country increase its gas reserves and underground storage, a critical step toward maintaining energy security through the winter. Ukraine's energy sector has been repeatedly disrupted by attacks on infrastructure, which at times have reduced domestic gas production by up to 40%. These attacks have also forced Ukraine to rely more heavily on imported gas to meet its needs. Starting March 26, European Union ports will enforce a suspension on the transshipment of liquefied natural gas that originates from or is exported by Russia. This decision was announced by the European Commission's press office as part of a broader package of sanctions that were formally adopted in June 2024, but delayed in implementation until March 2025 to allow time for adjustment. The suspension applies not only to the physical handling of Russian LNG at EU ports, but also to associated services. These include technical assistance, brokerage operations, financing, and other forms of financial or logistical support connected to the movement of Russian LNG through European infrastructure. While the ban aims to restrict Russia's ability to route LNG through the EU facilities for export to other markets, an exception does exist. Individual EU member states may still authorize transshipment if the gas is intended for their own domestic consumption, allowing for some flexibility in meeting national energy needs. Russia is preparing to receive large quantities of chemical ingredients essential for the production of military-grade explosives, according to documentation reviewed by Bloomberg. These materials are primarily nitric acid and nitric sulfuric acid mixtures and have been ordered from major fertilizer producers that have thus far avoided the most restrictive international sanctions in Russia. Despite broad economic measures targeting Russia's defense sector, the country appears to be leveraging the dual-use nature of industrial chemicals to maintain and possibly expand its munitions output. The chemical orders are designated for JSC Spetschemia, a key explosive producer and subsidiary of the state-owned defense conglomerate Rostec. Based on the allocated volumes of nitric acid, Bloomberg estimates that Russia could produce at least 6,500 rounds of 152mm artillery shells per day in 2025. In total, Russia's current capacity for producing or refurbishing artillery rounds is believed to be in the range of 3 to 4 million. Planning documents outline deliveries scheduled throughout the year to various facilities, including those with histories of supplying both military and civilian explosive materials. Among these are the Sverdlov plant in Dzerzhinsk and the Bisk oleum plant, both of which are linked to military applications and previously have been targeted by international sanctions. Though many of the facilities receiving these shipments are under sanctions, the suppliers themselves have largely continued operating within the global market, particularly due to the essential role their products play in international food production. The documentation reviewed includes order references and scheduling plans, indicating that deliveries are organized and expected to proceed throughout the year. Up next, we have international relations. An Irish military patrol aircraft was dispatched to monitor a Russian vessel that had anchored near a vital undersea communication cable off Ireland's northeastern coastline, according to a report by The Journal. This incident raised security concerns due to the vessel's proximity to critical infrastructure. The same vessel had previously drawn attention for its presence in the same region earlier in the year and reappeared near Irish waters on March 20th. Authorities identified the ship as being associated with Russia's Shadow Fleet. It had already been scrutinized for suspicious behavior in the Baltic Sea, which raised further alarms. Upon detecting the ship's renewed presence, the Irish Air Corps deployed a CASA 295 maritime patrol aircraft to intercept and monitor the vessel. This aircraft is used for maritime surveillance and reconnaissance and was tasked with gathering intelligence and observing the ship's activities to assess any potential threat to Irish infrastructure. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio stated that before any high-level negotiations between Washington and Moscow can take place, further progress must be made through lower-level technical discussions. Speaking to journalists en route to Myanmar, Rubio explained that the path forward depends on the outcomes of these preliminary talks and an internal assessment of recent diplomatic efforts. He plans to consult with the American negotiating team involved in the recent Saudi Arabia talks to better understand the discussions that took place and brief the U.S. president on their findings before determining the next steps. Rubio emphasized that the United States remains dedicated to the pursuit of peace, but cautioned that any potential resolution is not entirely within Washington's control. He noted that outcomes will depend heavily on the positions held by both Russia and Ukraine, as well as the role of European allies. Rubio's remarks also addressed Russia's recent expression of tentative support for a ceasefire in the Black Sea, a position reportedly outlined after multilateral talks hosted by Saudi Arabia. While Russia has claimed to signal openness to a truce, it has linked any cooperation to the lifting of specific Western sanctions. These include demands for removing restrictions on Russian food exporters, agricultural equipment imports, and Russian-flagged cargo ships, as well as reconnecting Russian financial institutions such as Roselkhozbank to the SWIFT global payment system. Rubio clarified that several of these conditions pertain to measures imposed by the European Union and not the United States and would require consensus from EU partners. In parallel, Ukraine already signaled a willingness to implement a full 30-day ceasefire as proposed by the U.S., provided Russia also commits to the deal. So far, Moscow has withheld full agreement and instead is pushing for a phased arrangement tied to concessions. And last item for this week, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has stated that he will examine the proposed agreement on control over Ukraine's mineral resources after legal experts assess it for potential risks to national legislation or sovereignty. His remarks come amid growing concern in Kyiv about a U.S.-driven proposal that, according to Ukrainian officials, seeks expansive influence over Ukraine's rare earth minerals and energy sector without offering corresponding security guarantees. Reports from the Financial Times suggest that the United States is pressing for a broad agreement that could significantly shift control of key Ukrainian assets abroad. Some senior Ukrainian officials have voiced strong opposition, describing the proposal as one-sided and potentially harmful to Ukraine's sovereignty. One official reportedly called the deal unfair, while another called it a form of appropriation. The concern centers around how profits and strategic control might be diverted away from Ukraine, deepening a dependency on Washington in exchange for limited or no firm commitments. Zelensky admitted that he has not yet personally reviewed the agreement, but emphasized that he will address the public openly if the deal is found to contain elements that threaten Ukraine's interests. He reiterated that Ukraine is not willing to accept new debts tied to such agreements and stated that any future financial support from the U.S. may involve conditions, but past debts are not on the table for the agreement. Zelensky also raised concerns about how details of the proposed agreement have already reached members of parliament before he himself had the opportunity to review it. He questioned the source of these disclosures, noting the unusual accuracy of leaked points that had already reached both lawmakers and the media. He speculated that some MPs may be receiving information from foreign diplomatic missions and said this will be investigated to better understand the motivations behind the leaks and the broader context of how the agreement is being discussed and shaped behind the scenes. And that's it for the main headlines this week. We'll now move to the next segment.
Yeah, hello guys, that would be me. As always, I will now present this week's most important news from Germany regarding Ukraine. We are starting with a donation made public on Thursday by the German city Singen. They have donated a complete multi-sports facility worth 60,000 euros, which was financed by the German government, as well as another tranche of school desks and chairs, you see in the image, to the Ukrainian twin city of Colby Badhwar. And already last but not least, the Federal Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Action announced on Friday that they are contributing another 7.27 million euros to the Ukraine Energy Support Fund via the German state-owned development bank KfW for the repair of damaged Ukrainian infrastructure. And yeah, that's it for my segment. So back to you, Joseph.
Thank you.